Hello and welcome to the Gold, Goats, and Guns podcast for August 22nd, 2024. My name is Tom Luongo, and we have a lot to talk about. It is episode 188, and I've been finally able to finish coordinating. I've been trying to get Joaquin Flores back on the podcast for a couple of months now, and between my feeding and art and me never using Telegram, and it's actually almost shameful that it's been this long since Joaquin's been on. I'll bring Joaquin on in just a second, but I have a couple of other announcements I need to make. So I'll be speaking again this year at the Expat Money Show put on by Mikkel Thorup from October 7th through the 11th. This is a free event. I'll be speaking twice, once by myself and once as part of a panel with Alex Craner and Bob Murphy, which was really, really cool. There will be people like Ron Paul, Doug Casey, Scott Horton, Tom Woods will be there, Mark Faber will be there. It should be an excellent show to help you learn everything you need to know about crafting a potential plan B if you need one, and if you're looking to preserve your liberty and your wealth at a time unknowable as the period of history that we're in right now. So this includes things like getting a second passport, diversifying your offshore finances, just investing in international real estate. All of these folks that will be there will be able to help you with that. So if you want to reserve your complimentary ticket, head over to expatmoneysummit.com and you can sign up there. We have a promo code, and the link will be in the show notes for this podcast. So to remind everybody, I will be speaking at the Mises Donor Conference in Hilton Head, South Carolina as the keynote speaker between October 10th and the 12th. I've got a promo code for that for anybody who hasn't bought a ticket to that yet. They'll be in the show notes. All right, let's bring Joaquin Flores on, because if there's a guy that I love to be challenged by in geopolitics more than Joaquin, I haven't met him yet. So this should be a good time. He's been on the show a couple of times before. We're going to bring him in and we're going to talk about a variety of things. We're going to talk about, from what I understand, a really disturbing incident that he had with the American government. So we'll start there. Joaquin, how you been and how you doing?
Hey, what's up? Thanks for the introduction. I appreciate it very much, and I'm glad to be with you. And yeah, I fully endorse any kind of regular or semi-regular slot we want to work out in the future every month or two or whatever. That would be great. I'm usually available. I know, and so I'm on Telegram and you're elsewhere, and then we're supposed to do a show. So we actually, like you said, we were trying to get this together for 3 weeks. So
At least.
2 weeks. I think we started to, yeah. So yeah, I'm glad to be with you. There are so many things going on in the world right now. As you mentioned, as you heard, as I've raised, yeah, I did have a very bad incident with the American government on July 3rd. And yeah, this is a pattern. So yeah.
So what happened?
Well, I was, I entered with my family on vacation to visit American family. I'm an American citizen. You know, I live in Belgrade. Mm-hmm. My wife is Serbian. My kids have dual citizenship. And we were coming in on their US passports, but her Serbian passport. Anyway, on the way in, I was pulled aside for questioning. And they did it under the rubric of the normal, secondary check where they pull you out of line and go through your bags. Well, okay. But the questions they had been asking me on my way in were like, when was the last time you were in the United States and stuff like that? And they made it seem like it was just a procedural flagging. You know, maybe it was just my tattoos. Maybe it was that I hadn't been in the country for a number of years. Maybe it had been the country that I was in, Serbia, that they're not on the best terms with the present U.S. administration, to say the least. To say the least. And I thought, this is procedural and not targeted at me until, then in the questioning, and mind you, we're trying to get where we need to be, right? So,
right.
And I've got toddlers and a wife, and now my wife is concerned, and we're being stopped and pulled to the side. And then I find myself in an interrogation area. And they proceed to change the subject from can we go through your bags, which they don't have to ask. If you don't have the same Fourth and Fifth Amendment at the border, that's considered a domain, and they can, without cause of any type or any articulable anything, they can just search your bags. In fact, they must if they want to. So,
right.
but they were trying to slippery slope the conversation from where I had been to what I thought about places I had been, like Russia. Were you invited there by people? Did you? What projects were you working? So what type of geopolitical analysis are you doing? And it's like, where did you get that I'm doing geopolitical analysis? I said that I'm no longer doing that as much. I would say that I do much more, personal advisement and career advisement and life coaching to people than a lot of geopolitics in some ways. So I don't know what axe you're grinding and stuff, but it was definitely a number of hours and in a room and being interrogated, and they were presenting themselves as border authorities. And when I said, look, this is all the time I have for today. These questions are going in some other direction. I'd like to proceed on my itinerary. The guy said, well, let me ask my boss what we're going to do next. And rather than that being the Customs or Border Authority, it was FBI officer, Alexander Littman or Loffman or whoever. I didn't say the name before. I don't even remember the name correctly. I didn't share the name for those reasons. But that's a public name, I think, and I may have the name wrong, so it doesn't matter. But I shared his card with everyone. But I edited out his name and phone number. And that was the boss. So now it's like, oh, so it was actually, there were FBI there with the border that were undeclared. They were just pretending to be border,
Right.
but they were FBI. And all of this, it was getting into the Russia collusion stuff. So they're still on this stuff, and are you working for the Russians and stuff like that? So now,
yeah, this is fascinating.
It was horrifying, because it's like, you're an American citizen, you've committed no crime, you're trying to pass through your border into your country. My wife is growing concerned, and I had an inkling that something like this could happen on the way in.
Right.
And and I don't know how I had that inkling. I just have intuition. This is not a statement of guilt or anything, of course. This is just knowing how rapacious and how sweeping they've been in their harassment of people. And I said, I think there's a good chance I'm going to get stopped on the way in. So I actually scheduled that night to just be at a hotel room, and all of my ongoing flights to like where I had to go in the country were for the next day.
Huh.
So the fact that was there for a number of hours didn't mess up my plans, fortunately.
Right. Well, I mean, it's funny. You say all that, and I listened to you saying that. I'm like, yeah, no, I would. That was really, not say prescient on your part, but prudent. And it's funny. I went to Edmonton. I flew up to Edmonton back in April, and late April. And I don't fly all that often. I barely leave the state of Florida. But I maybe I'm a little paranoid, but I even think that I'm like expecting to be, stopped at the border or something along those lines and asked or questioned. And interestingly enough, that's never happened to me. I find it, weird. And in a certain way, I almost feel weird that it hasn't happened. I mean, they're now we saw the story about Tulsi Gabbard getting the quadruple S certification on her passport, or the delineation on her not passport, boarding passes, and how she's being stopped and tailed everywhere. And it's like, this is very, very disturbing. That, but I think it's also indicative of where we're headed, right?
Yes. Yeah. This is like, if this can happen to me, it can happen to you, I think is what I hear you saying. And that's right. And all Americans should just, again, remain calm, right? Remain calm. Don't take any crazy illegal action or anything. You just be prudent and think about what you're doing, but know the direction that things are going in the United States in terms of, states that are stable do not need to do this to citizens, and
Right.
and they don't feel the need to do this to citizens.
Right.
This is not a sign of strength; it's a sign of weakness. And
Agreed.
and a strong society is an open society, and this type of thing of going after people for having different opinions,
Right.
the United States is not at war with Russia, nor is Russia even an informal enemy of the United States. You can research this question all you like. There's a congressional record, there's the internet, the US and Russia are not at war.
Well, I mean, other than the mercenaries that are currently fighting over in the Kursk region, but let's not split hairs.
Right, but
yes,
they're doing that
but
under the rubric of like quasi-deniable assets, which means so.
I know it is a very strange thing, right? It's this. Well, we're not at war, but we are at war. We're not enemies, but we are enemies. It's all this terrible legalese in order to, it literally, to me at this point, just feels like two kids in the back seat saying, "I'm not touching you," while they're poking each other in the,
right.
That's literally what it feels like at this point. And, it's such, it's, if the stakes weren't so high, that's the way I would treat it. But, every day it's very clear, at least the way I see it, and I'm interested the way you hear what you have to say about this. But to me, it just feels like this is part of the operation, that we have to get to a point of open conflict, and how we get there this is all just a game about how we get there, and this is the period that we're in. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, as per everything else, it's normal everyday people who bear the burden of this policy, of this ever escalating policy. What do you think?
Yeah, I would concur. I think it's. I would add too that there is a political conflict that they are fomenting, and what they want to do more than anything is to break people's faith, to break their will, to demoralize them. And for those who they can't demoralize, they would like to radicalize others. And by radicalizing people, then they become the very foil that the state needs to justify the things post facto.
Yes.
So the post facto justification of the repression radicalizes people. Radicalization produces the foil that justifies the repression.
Right. Yep.
We have to avoid that problem, reaction, solution stuff that they roll out for us.
I agree completely, and I'm really glad you brought that up, because you can see it in every facet of geopolitics at this point. You can talk about it from the individual level, be it trying to radicalize a person so that they can hold them up as an example of this is what the alt-right looks like, or this is what the far right Nazis look like. But it also exists at the state level as well. This is how I see the provocations vis-a-vis Russia and or Iran, or under any circumstance. It's the same mechanism.
It is the same mechanism. It is the same mechanism, and like you're saying, at the geopolitical level, what would be an analog? Well, the Kursk incursion, right? Ukraine going into Kursk, right? So what are we seeing from the Russian side and from Russian statesmen at the level of the Duma? That's like their Senate for folks, and they're saying their Congress, and you have senators. And maybe they're doing a script. Who knows? Maybe they're playing into this, so they're going through the motions of having this conversation in Russia. But today we have important Duma members saying, you know, Putin needs to stop calling this an SMO. We need to declare war in Ukraine. After
Yes.
Kursk, we can't call this an SMO.
Right.
Now, whatever the Russian state decides to do and whatever it considers wisdom, and states do make mistakes, but there are very smart people there, nevertheless. I would say that this is very similar to the provocation that you're talking about with individuals. And if Russia, you know, goes for that, if they bite the bait, if they take the bait, I guess is the expression, then you're going to have this escalation that could then justify, you know, some distraction from the vacuum of support that Kamala Harris is now experiencing in this crazy simulation. You know, if you would have been, I was in the United States. I know you don't watch it, but you see, my mom does, and I was there with her at times. She watches MSNBC. She's a smart woman, very smart woman, and she gets that everything's a lie and everything. She's someone I think you would actually like, and yet, you know, she's subjecting herself to this MSNBC stuff. And if you watch it, you can actually see that they're creating this whole narrative out of whole cloth, really, and they're pursuing this strategy of tension. In the mainstream news reports, they were saying that Kamala Harris has this crazy wave of excitement in the Democrat Party base. When they were showing like footages and images of excited, you know, parts of this base, and then they proceeded to interview them like on MSNBC as if it was all organic or something, like people that were flipping out, you know, it turned out that they were like important party, you know, what is it when you're an intern in a congressman's office and stuff like that?
Staffer. Like a staffer.
Yeah.
I like to use the word.
Yeah, they were younger Democrats, but they were staffers, you know, and like having staffers act excited is like the lowest of the low, you know, AstroTurf, you know, like SEIU nonsense that like people see right through. Right. And that's all that they were able to get excited as people whose job it was. It reminded me of like when the was it Capitol Records, whoever, when they brought the Beatles over from, you know, and they had those girls like pretend to flip out and faint like in the front rows to create like Beatlemania. So they're trying to do this Beatlemania shit, like with, I know, I feel like it's a Clash song. Phony Beatlemania is taking control. It's Kamala Harris though now is the Beatlemania, but no one's into it. It's the funniest thing. No one can say what she stands for. No one can say what she's about. And I think that's their winning ticket, actually.
I'll be honest with you. It's very clear what she's about. I think she's a doctrinaire Obama style, classic Marxist. But you're absolutely right. This is manufacturing enthusiasm. It's manufacturing consent. It's all this Edward Bernays stuff. It's like it's so very, very obvious what they're doing. I mean, if you look at just to like, you know, to finish or extend that point, like their whole this is what the campaign of joy. Have you watched the DNC so far this week? They're all running around, they're all coming out and cheering and dancing and all of this stuff. And I'm like, this is so fake.
It's like a Jenny Craig commercial.
Yeah, no, it's like the same energy that Richard Simmons used to put out. I saw the meme yesterday. Yeah, it was hilarious. I'm like, oh my God, this is so bad. Because when it's one thing when it's, you know, like it's one thing when you know it's marketing and it's Jenny Craig, right? But it's another thing when it's pushing your political party. And like Tim Walz is a weird, weird man. And watching Chuck Schumer like walk out and do the dance, the bad white man's dance thing, I was like, oh my God, you guys have no idea how badly this is playing right now. You just have no clue. It's unbelievable. So, but it's the way I saw it. The first thing that popped into my head when I thought about this was that, you know, they're trying to go back and recapture the old Democrat energy of, well, we're the people that you want to party with, and the GOP is a bunch of old stodgy, cigar chomping capitalists, and we're the guys you want to get high with. Like that's the old Democratic energy from like the 80s and the early 90s, that kind of 70s, 80s, 90s thing. And how you can't get that image back.
You can't get that back, and it's totally fake, and it's like, wait a minute, like, and they were trying to do that even with they had that comedian, what's his face, I forget his name, from Whataburger. It was like an old 90s pot smoking comedy called Whataburger. It was like a Nickelodeon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't see it.
Movie. Yeah. Anyway, I forget the actor's name, the comedian, but they had him there on the stage, and he's saying, he thinks, or his script is to talk about how they're going to lower the price of they're going to take on big pharma, and they're going to lower the price of insulin, and it's like, wait a minute, these are all things that Trump did, and that, like, even some executive orders you guys reversed, to make sure to protect big pharma and the middlemen, like EpiPens and insulin and stuff like that.
Yeah, they clearly undid everything on purpose that Trump did. Now they're on it. Like, I don't know how they're, like I said the other day, like, how is the Democrats thinking that they're going to be able to run as the reform candidate when they're the incumbent? Right, because that's what they're doing. That's literally what they're doing, right? And all I can think of is Charles Durning in Oh Brother Where Art Thou? Like, we need some of that reform, Pappy. Like, we're the incumbent, you stupid bitch. We can't run.
That's exactly what it is.
That's all I see, right? It's like, it's just. But I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. The question I guess I have is, and I've been trying to gauge it because I can't figure it out, and I'm going to ask you what you think on this, is that I can't tell if they're overconfident that they've got the cheat so thoroughly in the bag that they don't care and they're just rubbing our noses in it, or are they really that clueless, or are they just like going to see since Trump lived? I guess there's three scenarios. They have the cheat in the bag. They don't know what to do now that Trump survived the assassination attempt, and they're setting up for 2028. So now they're just going to poison pill the whole thing and leave him with nothing but problems everywhere. Or is it a mixture of all three?
Yeah, so you're saying scorched earth to sabotage the incoming administration, and they're going for 2028. So this is how I put a lot of thought into this as well, man, because I'm in the trying to figure this out. And having been someone that was a DNC operative at the level of SEIU, remember I fundrose. What's the past tense of fundraise?
Past participle or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, I fundrose or whatever, like almost a quarter or over $250,000 for Obama in 2007 from the SEIU members that I represented, right. and combined over what are called COPA pledges that are sustained over a year, 2 or 3. So these are people, giving $20 a month on top of their union dues to the COPA fund. And anyway, that all added up, and you project it over like 3 or 4 years, and it's $250,000.
It's a lot of money.
Yes, it is. And the promise to our members was that they were going to do single payer choice. Mm-hmm. That they were going to do the employee free choice. This is like labor union stuff, and you saw how important labor is, and you saw how the Teamsters president was there at the at Trump's nomination convention and stuff,
right? And
gave a keynote speech. So I've been writing about this in my work, the coming national labor movement, for the past 3 or 4 years, like honed in on this subject. Being a labor insider, I was chief negotiator at Local 99. I did a lot of the stuff, the fundraising, the worker mobilization to get out the vote, the GO2V messaging, and so forth. I did the 47th and 48th congressional district race. I did the second seat for the Mark Ridley Thomas of the LA County Board of Supervisors at the time as well. So I understand DNC politics at the local level, and I have a kind of an image of how people are thinking at that level. So to answer your question, I would suggest that people like Obama and Pelosi and Schumer know what's going to happen. They have a clear idea that's non-fanatical of what to expect and what the strategy is, and they're working directly with strategists like John Podesta, who's a very well-known political strategist, and others. And so then layers below them have different justifying beliefs and ideologies There, and if you're someone like Pelosi and you have people subordinate to you and they're operating on, either they're true believers or they're believers in that they've got the election in the bag, if you know what I mean. Those are two different types of believers.
Right.
But they both believe they're going to win fanatically, either by hook or by crook. You've got both of those types of people operating. All these different beliefs are happening simultaneously. But in terms of what motivates and justifies these different people in the hierarchy of the DNC, but at the very top, yeah, most of them have some clarity. And I do believe, well, what I'm working on is trying to figure out, and I'm working on this for an article for Strategic Culture Foundation right now, is whether the assassination attempt was a plot by all the factions of the Democrats, or if it was like a maneuver of some of them that would have altered for example, the decision later to bring in Kamala now. Alternatives would have been like if Trump had been assassinated, for example, successfully, and it all looks like that was going to happen, supposed to happen. I'm still working out why it didn't. I have some interesting ideas that include the death threats that Biden made to him, including the one where, remember when they were actually on the stage and it looked like they were arguing about golf, and at first and Biden turned to Trump and said, "You say you're 6'4", but you're 6'5". And then at the moment of the assassination, it was like, was Trump wearing his shoes or not wearing his shoes? Okay, well, that's very interesting. To me, just those two things. And in terms of
FYI, just the point about the shoes, from what I understand, the Secret Service hit him so hard that he knocked them out of his shoes, which is why when he stood up, he said, "Let me get my shoes. Let me get my shoes." I just to throw that in there.
Right. And because that's what I also got from the narrative, but my eyes told me something else, because I saw the thing happen and it grazed his ear. And it was like, oh, did a bird just bite my ear, or did I get stung really hard? I mean, it was like, what? It wasn't the knocked over thing, okay? Right. It was like a what just nipped my ear type of thing. That wouldn't have put a man out of his shoes. And by the way, he was not tackled by the Secret Service, unless you mean a bunch of 5'8" people trying to tackle a 6'4" guy. I mean, they stood around him and he crouched, is what I saw. Right. But I didn't see him knocked off his feet or anything like that. But if you talk about a sharpshooter and an inch or two here or there, and shoes or not shoes, and who knows? But the thing is that Biden had another instance of making a death threat on Trump, when he said, "We got to put him in the bullseye."
Yes,
he said those words, and then when that tweet was flagged by people saying that was the threat, they released Biden's White House released an official statement saying, "We didn't say to put a target on him. We didn't say to put him in the crosshairs. We said to put him in the bullseye." What?
Yeah, seriously.
Well, bullseye was the misuse of speech, is why you said bullseye. A bullseye is what you hit when you hit the target in the middle, but you put a target. What you meant to say is put him in the crosshairs.
Right.
Now, I guess a 9-year-old might call the crosshairs in a sight the bullseye. I don't know.
Right.
But that's what they said. That's what they meant.
I know.
And anyway, so he said that. So then that puts a different light on that weird thing where he turns to him and says, "You say you're 6'5", but you say you're 6'4", but you're actually 6'5".
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and that's weird. And you would think that Joe Biden would get that mixed up. Like, he probably meant, right, you say you're 6'5", but you're actually 6'4". But then maybe that actually was what he meant to say. Maybe Trump's underreporting his height. I don't know. I mean, but
it's a very weird thing. And the stuff that's coming out now, I'm sure you saw the report there's something that came out recently that said that Crooks had 3 encrypted social media accounts, and one of which goes back to Brussels. Oh,
wow.
No, this is out there. I don't know if it's been confirmed or not, but like the fact that, was he speaking to NATO? Right. I mean, like, let's not kid ourselves. He's like target shooting at the same at the same shooting range that that the local FBI uses and local law enforcement uses. Like it's not hard to I mean, there's no argument here. They tried to kill Trump. That's not the issue. They tried to kill Trump. I mean, we can get into the minutia, and I've tried to stay away from the minutia of it. I saw it. I took one look at it and went, "Oh, they tried to kill Trump."
Right.
Let me entertain for about 4 minutes that it was something else.
Right.
No, they tried to kill Trump.
Yeah,
and then
I was like, well,
and then everything else after that does not matter. Like, and now the question is just how deep does the rabbit hole go, and how many people wanted to kill Trump?
Right, and that's I guess we were at. Right. Yeah. So was it just, because Obama was in a very good position as one of the management juntas, and when I say juntas, they can work with the other ones, and they often do, and the candidate that they arrive at is often a compromise candidate if none of them really prevail. But you have, Hillary Clinton is a very strong figure. You have that wing, and you have a lot of people there with her. People know that list. You have Obama. He's another powerful player. He's got his wife is also a power broker. They have the Obama. See, there's the Clinton There's the Clinton Foundation. There's the Obama Global Team. They have all these different organizations. You have, of course, the Pelosi Newsom, the California Power. And it's like, was the assassination attempt an initiative of one of those groups to change the outcome of the nomination? Or was it a collective plan to just eliminate Trump and then all agree forward on what to do next, right? I guess that's sort of one of my questions.
Yeah, well, that's exactly the way Dexter White and I mapped the Democratic Party. There's three factions: the Clinton wing, the Obama wing, and the California wing. And they can have their Venn diagram of incentives, and they can all cross in the center and like, well, let's just kill Trump. What was unnerving to me in the days leading up to it was that everybody was really, really kind of serene. Like all these Supreme Court decisions are coming down against them, and all these things are happening, and everything else. But everybody's like, I'm looking at the EU, and they're all like, yeah, we're not worried about Trump. This one's not worried about Trump. No one's worried about Trump, because they all knew that they were going to try, that they were expecting him to not be there. And that's the way I read it. And I read the whole thing as being a setup for, you want the ultimate demoralization campaign, you give us Nikki Haley after Trump is assassinated versus Hillary Clinton. And that's like the ultimate demoralization campaign.
Right.
But at that point, we also had said for a long time, Dexter and I have said this for 3 years, that Harris held all the cards because she's the VP. And if she refuses to step aside, there's not a thing they can do about it.
Oh, that's interesting you say that, because I've been wondering if they're going to assassinate Harris.
Maybe. I mean, I look at Tim Walz and I say to myself, she's not actually going to run anything. They're not going to let her run anything. And Tim Walz actually knows how to run a state. Run it badly, I might add, but run it well if you're Obama and you're a fucking vandal, right? So it all depends on your perspective, right? So, if your goal is the destruction of the United States, well, then these things all track from a particular point of view, right?
Right. Yeah, that sounds about right. And I've also mapped out that these the main groups in this way. That's how I've been talking about it, and that's how I think it makes sense. Because when you go back to, if you remember 2007, and I remember that because SEIU is a very important part of the Democrat machine. It's without Ask Me and SEIU, but really SEIU, you don't have a GOTV campaign, door knockers. Republicans rely on a very large hodgepodge of unrelated civil society organizations, NGOs, from the, Sons and Daughters of the American Revolution over there, the NRA over there, different little Baptist evangelical churches. I mean, people just go out and they for local politicians, that local politician, and then they're down ballot from Trump. So people are doing the GOTV at the community level upwards. Does that make sense? So,
Yes.
but the Democrats are a top-down organization where there's a monopoly on the GOTV, and it's overwhelmingly done by SEIU. There's a lot of AFL in there, but reliably SEIU is a huge power broker, and Obama even claimed SEIU credentials in 2007 and said that he was also an organizer out of Local 1 in Chicago, which I think is just biographical fiction. These people just make up things. We're hearing about Waltz and his imaginary combat service now. At the time,
Sure.
Obama was saying that he was a union organizer and stuff like this. None of that was true in the end. But that's how they had us set up. But we saw at the local level that it was Hillary Clinton was supposed to have that nomination in 07 or 08.
Yeah.
For 08. I'm just going to use the year so not to confuse people. We'll just say 08, 12, etc. In the 2008 campaign, SEIU was gonna go for Clinton, but then something happened, and see, there's something called the International, and the International is like headquarters, which is separate from the locals, and there's a relationship kind of like state and federal government between the locals and the International. So sometimes the staffers at the local are also trying to make inroads or have an assignment or trying to gravitate towards the International. So I remember the organizers that were at a certain point, like during that primary campaign, I remember that the organizers that were close to the International all of a sudden had Obama bumper stickers on the back of their car. So I know how these things work and how the process, what it looks like, and the excitement for Harris. I was going to say, for Miss Obama, but no, the excitement for Harris doesn't exist at this grassroots level. And they haven't had any excitement for any candidate since Bernie Sanders. And they're just relying on MSNBC viewers and baby boomers and college students, and then the short one, the fat one, the gay one, the queer one, the crippled one, etc., to vote for the Democrats.
Right.
And that's it. It's just a motley crew, and the saddest thing is organized labor. The saddest part, because they're working against their own self-interest. There's no Democrats have been selling out. Like, whether you agree with what labor wants or not, what is undeniable is that Democrats have been selling out labor since at least the time of Clinton. So this is all like third way Clinton Blair, third way politics. It's like neo austerity. It's basically corporate austerity using the language of social democracy.
Yes. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. This is where the Democrats have gone, and it's become a distinctly globalist distinctly globalist. And that leads me to say, then that was a strategy, and that the goal here is nothing more than to obfuscate the truth about and to confuse everybody and hold on to the reins of power just long enough to destroy the infrastructure and the institutions of the country and then bring it low. So this is, and so now the question is, where do we land on, what the Democrats' strategy was? Well, ultimately their strategy is to destroy the United States. I think Obama was brought in to destroy the United States. He was always the Manchurian candidate. This is now this will be his fifth term in power, fifth term in power, because he ran a shadow government while Trump was in office, and they put a lot of energy into ensuring that Obama would destroy the country. So now the question you start to look at it is the following: it's clear that Pelosi is not happy with how this went down, because I think she wanted Gavin Newsom to take over. And
their guy. That's right.
Yeah, I mean,
you could have had Newsom and Michelle Obama together. You could have had. There was a lot of combinations. You could have had Hillary Clinton come back. I was strongly suspecting that Hillary Clinton could come back as well. So I was sort of torn, really. Interesting. I didn't really suspect Kamala. I actually thought that this would be Michelle Obama, and then second after that, Hillary Clinton, or maybe a team up of the two. And then, because Hillary Clinton is like her energy isn't like, oh, this is a woman, right? She's white and institutional. So it's really like a white man and then the black woman, right? But that's also a man, maybe. But anyway, the whole point is that.
No, that's literally right. I mean, Hillary is as unfemale as a candidate gets. Like she's a classic Davosian, Davos-esque, older, postmenopausal harpy like Merkel and Madeleine Albright and all the rest of them. So that makes perfect sense.
Right. They're like little old men.
What's that?
They're like little old men.
Yes, they are. They're like little old men, like Janet Yellen, like perfect example of yet another one, or Christine Lagarde. And you notice like they're everywhere, right? And so they're like mushrooms. They sporify after a fucking rainstorm in a cow field. But it's my go-to metaphor for all of this shit at this point. But but at the same time, there was procedurally, if Obama, like think of it this way: Obama was the president, but Hillary ran the party while he was president. That tension was always there, right? Because Hillary controlled the purse string, she controlled the money, she controlled the superdelegates and all of this stuff. And so, like, there's no love lost between those two. There's no love lost between any of these factions, to be honest with you. And then you have to, I hate to go like conspiratorial. I hate to go into this direction, but you cannot discount the role of China influencing the California wing of the Democratic Party, because it's very clear. Pelosi went to Beijing. Newsom went to Beijing. Newsom goes to Beijing and meets with Xi. The Yellen goes to Beijing and meets with the janitor. Right. Blinken goes to Beijing and meets with the janitor. Right. So like it's clear, who China prefers here. Right. And so there's a lot going on here, and it's very, very difficult to map. So what I would say is, I think it's clear that Obama got his choice, which is Harris. And so Ira Harris brought this up to me the other day. I was on a podcast with the great trader, markets trader Ira Harris, and he brought up the fact that that every member of the Federal Reserve Board that was put in after they got rid of Kaplan, Carita, and Rosengren after the insider trading scandal, every one of them maps back to Harris's father at Stanford University.
Very interesting.
Okay, so they're clearly setting up for a post-Powell Federal Reserve. Okay, and my theory has been, or my not theory, but my operating principle has been that they have political control of the United States. But what they're most mad about under Trump is that they lost control of the Fed. They lost control of monetary policy. They don't have monetary control. And so you can't run their whole plan without having both the Fed and the political control. And what we've seen for the entire Biden administration has been nothing but a big cat fight between two very distinct groups of people. And now, so this is what I've seen in the capital markets has been nothing but kind of delaying tactic after delaying tactic after delaying tactic. It's why Janet Yellen is running yield curve control. It's why she's working with Christine Lagarde to cap interest rates and all this other stuff.
You think they're going to cut rates by 0.5% next month?
I think Powell wants to hold rates at 5.5, but I don't think he will be able to. I think my base case now is that he's going to cut by 25 basis points. I'll know after I listen to his Jackson Hole speech, which is later this afternoon. We're doing this on the Thursday morning of the Jackson Hole symposium or convocation of central bankers. That's important. I think we'll get clues to what Powell's going to do then.
25 basis points is going to be 0.5%.
No, 25 would be a quarter point. Be a quarter point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you think they would drop it by 0.25%?
I'm now talking basis points. Sorry. What's that?
Would you say that again?
I said I'm now a bond guy. I get to talking basis points as
right. Yeah. So they're gonna. So
sorry.
Yeah. No, I was reading people debating whether they were going to cut it by 0.5%. But
yeah, no, that's what the market wants. That's what they're clearly trying to blackmail Powell into. But I know that he doesn't want to do that. And I don't think that, but again, he might not be able to, and so now the question is, with all the economic data, now with the big release that the BLS lied about 800,000 jobs, who released that?
That just came out.
Right. Who released that? Who didn't? I think that was the Fed, and a staffer over at the BLS leaking that data to undermine Harris even further, because they're trying to run on this idea that Bidenomics worked. And then
Right. That's what they're trying to say.
They've suppressed bond yields and they've suppressed the price of oil in order to try and keep inflation under control. That's what they've done.
But can they do that that's what our original question is really about, is like,
right,
can they actually do that for another year, 2 or 3, or are they going to drop the bomb as Trump comes in and then, this is all Trump's fault?
I think that here's the and that's a good question. So my case this morning, and there's a lead article by Michael Every from Rabobank is on Zero Hedge literally as we speak, saying if Trump comes into power, he's only got the Fed's only going to cut to 4.5%. Well, Every being a classic kind of British style neocon wants more than that. And he's lamenting that. I think, yes, Powell will probably cut lightly under Trump. He might actually cut more aggressively than that, because Trump will probably come in and do some fiscal reform as well to offset these things. And then that's what Powell wants to do. But if Harris wins, I expect Powell to raise rates in order to stop them from further eroding the fiscal position of the U.S., unless, of course, they're going to use that as a means by which to cancel the Fed's charter, bring it back under the Treasury, and then go for MMT and destroy the fucking country.
Right. So those are 3 different scenarios.
They're making it choose between the Fed and the Treasury Department, both of which are fucking awful, right? But one is slightly less awful than the communists from Chicago. That's the way I'm reading it right now, and it's a big fucking mess. So I don't know.
Yeah, what you're saying is that in the debate over the interest rate is not the issue. Actually, you can raising or lowering interest rates even by 3 points at this point in time, well, for quite some time, but we're speaking in the present, of course, is not the issue.
Right. It's the issue is who's has Powell been have things. It's about, what Powell wants to do is hold interest rates as high as possible, because he's trying to destroy the leverage in the offshore dollar markets. He's trying to bring the general price level of he's trying to keep the cost of dollars offshore high, because I think he understands, he and the people who back him, that would be Wall Street, understand that the way you break these people is to stop the money flows out at 0%, gets levered up, and then comes back to destroy the country. The way you defund the NGOs, the way you defund the vote buying and all this bullshit, is you've got to get rid of the funny money. Like you go back to FTX, you go back to Silvergate Bank, you go back to all this stuff. These are all basically money laundering operations for the DNC and for the CIA and for other NGOs that are trying desperately to put their thumb on the scale of geopolitically. And I think Powell holding rates at 5.5% is draining them, and they're all screaming about it. They've tried like 17 times. They've tried to blackmail him. They're cutting rates, and he refuses to do so. So is the 18th time going to be the charm? I don't know. And then the question now, it's a race between whether or not the American economy so degrades at this level that he has to cut or not. And that's, I think, where we are. And I think it's a very interesting moment in time.
Yeah, I was in the United States for 45 days. I just got back a few days ago, and I was all over the country, from the East Coast, the middle, New Mexico, and then the very West Coast. And I saw America, and it was the first time I really seen America in like 12 or 14 years. And there's a lot of changes, and there's a lot of infrastructure that's there's a lot of weeds growing in the cracks of sidewalks in the middle of the nicer parts of towns. We drove through Beverly Hills, and I saw, and I grew up adjacent. I know it like the back of my hand. I know Beverwell Drive. I know Santa Monica Boulevard, and all of them like the back of my hand. Wilshire, Olympic, And I'm seeing on the streets, I'm seeing weeds growing out of between the sidewalk cracks.
Right.
That's like what you see in Eastern Europe or the Balkans,
Right.
or Greece, and or in poor parts of the U.S. or in San Bernardino, right? But you don't see it in
Right.
Beverly Hills, and
Right.
now you do. And like every other shop was closed down, which means that rents are way too high, which means something's got to give, unless
Yes.
they're trying to just double down on that state of vacancy. I don't know.
You see, it's hard for me to see it, Joaquin, because I live in Florida and everybody's moving to Florida, and there's so much money flowing in that everything is even in a shit town like Gainesville looks relatively good. And I drive to South Florida and visit friends and family down there. I what do I see? I see everything looks good. I see Boca looks Boca and West Palm. There's construction everywhere. Other than the odd rebuilding after a hurricane, for the most part, the place looks pretty good. But it's Florida, which is it's kind of like Shangri-La at this point, because that's where all the money is flowing to, and it's flowing out of all these other areas of the country. So
yeah, in Santa Monica, there used to be these very ritzy upscale areas, shopping. There was the 3rd Street Promenade. There was a lot of places that in this zone that you go basically between Santa Monica, Brentwood, and Beverly Hills. And it's a shambles. It's really bizarre. Literally in Beverly Hills, every other shop is closed. I mean, for lease, out of business, or sometimes the businesses are so big, like what closed down? I saw one that had closed down, Saks Fifth Avenue. So now they may have relocated, but they were in this beautiful old original building. That one is for lease. Other buildings that are empty, they're hiding. I saw them do this first in Europe. Now I see it in Beverly Hills. They create some kind of art thing that wraps around the building, and it makes you think you're seeing art or something else. Like you can tell that there's a building being renovated or something behind it if you look at it, but it's not an eyesore. But if you actually realize what you're seeing, Tom, these businesses are shut down. So now some people, of course, are saying, well, naturally, obviously, you're going to see a decline in brick and mortar as people order things online. That makes sense. But what's interesting to me is so the model up until now is that there are people who own these buildings. They lease them to people that think they can make a buck there with a restaurant or an outlet retail store or some service. Where does that go now? Do the people who own the buildings now have to start the businesses? I mean, how else does that work?
No, what's going to happen, of course, is that this is the argument about why Powell can't hold rates at these levels, because commercial real estate's getting crushed, and but again, the question then you ask yourself is, well, why was it so powerful in the first place? It's because the Fed was zero bound. And so, this is the, as a supposedly still doctrinaire Austrian, I will tell you that the Austrian economist, that the bust is the cure and the boom is the disease. And that's the problem. And then we need to have a restoration of and a movement of capital away from, all of this, overinvested, malinvested commercial real estate back. And then that money needs to be distributed in other ways. And what the Biden administration has done, and to a lesser extent, what happened under Trump, and what Harris and company absolutely want to do, is to short circuit that process of the reorganization of capital. Yeah, they want to bring that. Okay, so that commercial real estate, for example, as part of this, is going to be brought down in price. But they want to take that money, as opposed to letting it redistribute out to the people. They're going to take it for themselves, cut the vig for themselves, and then hand 5 cents back to Main Street in the form of a price control or a housing subsidy, down payment subsidy, or something along those lines. That's just the classic thing. And so they absolutely do not want to see that money roll back into the middle class, who could start businesses with that. If those buildings drop 50, 60, 70% in value, they can pick them up for 30 or 40 cents on the dollar and then build a and build a more rational business model. They don't want that to happen, because this is absolutely I think a controlled demolition by the upper class to use the lower class to go to war with the middle class. This is a classic.
Yeah, that's my same model. I have the same model.
No, that's exactly the model that we're seeing. I mean, you and I are seeing. I think we're seeing the exact same thing.
Yeah, we are eye to eye.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
Harris, the DNC, whether they believe what their plan is, clearly someone's plan was to kill Trump, and whether that plan was just the plan of Pelosi, whether that was just the plan of Biden made the threats, though. There's no doubt that Biden made verbal threats prior to the assassination, at least one, possibly two. One very overt, and so much that they were flagged on Twitter and had to explain themselves and say, well, we didn't say to put him in the crosshairs. We said to, put a bullseye on him. Okay.
Right. Okay. So distinction without a difference. Thank you very much.
Right. Thanks. And then so then who was behind it? And then that's very interesting. If it was their whole plan, so then for me, what's contingent is not whether Trump has the votes, but whether we have a process at the local precinct level of counting votes accurately. I think I'm just trying to do the calculations, like based on what they're doing, based on trying to assassinate Trump, and based upon what we've been seeing. I'm suspicious that the poll numbers that they're showing that show, Trump 4 or 5 points ahead of Harris, Rasmussen at least, is a little more accurate. If that's on the conservative end of accurate, meaning the lead is a little bigger, well, mainstream media has been reporting that Trump is ahead in a number of these polls. They don't harp on it, but they'll mention it when you actually see it. So that's interesting. I noticed that the rhetoric against Trump up until recently just wasn't that crazy. And they kept talking about the likelihood that he would win this election again when it was Biden was the candidate.
Yep.
In a very nonchalant way. Like they weren't worried about, Trump's going to be some fascist takeover. Like they, convinced boomers that that's the case. So then it's like, if the assassination obviously failed, Trump is still alive. So does that mean that he's going to win? You see, or what else do they, because in other words, you can understand the way I'm setting it up. If it was an agreement by all of them that Trump has to be killed, then it looks like the numbers they're looking at are like Trump can defeat any candidate pretty much. And that would also mean that the local reform efforts of Republican activists to clean up how the precincts are run have been successful enough in the swing precincts of the swing states.
Right.
So it's not like you don't say, so it's a very interesting map. If you can focus those efforts on those, you can do them. Like if you understand what are the key precincts in the swing states, and that those are the location where the most stolen or questionable or whatever, I don't want to get deleted from the internet, whatever that was, you see, then it's likely that they have Trump winning by their own. I'm saying at the level that Pelosi and Obama understand things.
Right. Yeah, no, and that may be the case, and Joaquin, like I've said this in a couple of different podcasts that I've been on. I said, look, you go around, and I have friends in Gainesville. Like the day after Harris becomes the candidate in the internal coup, there are signs all over Gainesville for her. Okay, there are 4 days after that happens, there are billboards up all across the country, designed all the same like layout and format. I voted for Trump twice. My name is Dan. I'm voting for Harris. Black, white script on a black background with a guy all over the country. Those are billboards that were bought 4 months ago. So they knew they were going to pull. This is when I saw that, I'm like, okay, I was wrong. Hillary was never really in play here. That this was always going to be some kind of plan. I think what Pelosi's angry about is that Newsom is not the vice presidential
VP,
candidate.
yeah.
Right. Because then the plan I think the agreement was, okay, we'll let Harris have her day because there's no way for us to get around her, but then we'll put our guy in, as VP, and then we'll get rid of her somewhere along the lines, and then Newsom will rise to become president, which is what we all agree on. And Obama, I think, stabbed everybody in the back. That's right. What I said.
Yeah, I mean, Obama had the most cards to play because he could have continued to power broker and have considerable control over any next administration. He had the most cards because he had Biden, but he had journalism talking of Michelle.
Yes.
He had a lot of press saying Michelle Obama is the one that could be. I mean, there was like 4 or 5 different articles. We have to recruit Michelle. There were different polls saying, "Oh, Michelle's the one that can defeat Trump."
Yep.
So it looked like Michelle to me, and but Harris is what they went with. Trump said just recently, like yesterday, the day before, he's sort of on board with us. He suspected it. He said, "I'm surprised it's Harris." He thought that and he said verbally, when they put up the 12 different potential candidates, he thought there might be some process that it wasn't going to involve Harris at that point.
Right.
And
I mean, because I mean, the opera. I think. Tell me if you disagree with this, but I kept looking at the last year and a half of Biden, clearly non-compos mentis, and them saying, okay, like we need to get rid of Biden. We need to get this thing started. We need to start campaigning. Right. But we can't have Biden. And the only reason Biden's still in office is because Harris refused to step aside. And they didn't want Harris any more than they wanted Biden, but Harris refused to step aside. And that's because she had all the cards to play. And I said for months, I would go on a podcast and go, look, if I'm Kamala Harris, I'm going to sit in the Naval Observatory and I'm going to entertain offers. I'm going to entertain offers from the GOP. I mean, because I've got the 25th Amendment in my back pocket at any point. Right. I can go out and I can undermine and undercut the entire fucking cabinet if I can get, this is what if I were her, this is what I would do. Right. And I would have said, okay, fine. You get to be the candidate. We'll get rid of Biden. You get to be the first female president for about 8 months. And then Trump takes over in January and you don't go to Guantanamo.
Right. I guess I'm trying to figure out
from not invoking the 25th Amendment in the first place.
How much of an autonomous, how much agency, how much of an autonomous actor, where's the ceiling cognitively, long-term planship wise that Kamala is capable of? I mean, she's not a stupid woman. She doesn't strike one as someone that is pulling her own strings. So clearly she would have some cognizance of the strings that she has and the position that she has, but she would still, of course, that you would still have the traditional mechanisms of keeping a politician beholden to those holding her strings. And then it's sort of like, so then you have to, so there's 2 kind of lineages that I would want to trace is like, I remember in California, as early as 2009 or 2010, California Democrats were talking up Kamala Harris like she was going to be the next president. One day that she was going to be fast tracked for the White House. And I remember just seeing her lack of gravitas and her lack of presence, her lack of energy on a stage one time, and she was trying to do gestures that appealed to young people. This was like 15 years ago when young people were doing this weird thing like this with their arm and their other arm like that. And so she did one of those. I forget what they were called. It's some retarded emo dance move. And she did it like on the stage. Yeah, people will know what it is. It's like it's where you put your arm out to the side and your head down onto your arm while your other arm goes out to the side. It's a weird thing. I forget what it's called, but someone in your audience will know and comment on it. But yeah, it's that was really weird. They were setting her up to be the next Obama back then.
Mm-hmm.
Like a female Obama was how she was described even then. And yet when I think about the assassination, that's the logistics of the assassination at least hinged upon the director of the Secret Service intentionally not doing her job. So whoever was behind the plot, whether it was a faction in the DNC or the whole DNC, I mean the party, not the NC, but whether it was all the power brokers, or one against the other, or if it was an initiative of one at the expense of potentially of others, then how she got her marching orders to not actually secure the perimeter and to make sure that Trump had like some very incapable people there as officers, as Secret Service officers as well. I mean, to say that the sloping roof prevented them from securing the roof is just so fucking bullshit, so fucking bizarre. Excuse my French.
You're okay. You're good here.
Okay, yeah. So it was, so, you know, who does she know? You know, you have to dig on her biographically and, you know, her position and her contacts with these other people. And that would tell, I think from that we could figure out possibly if this was a faction of Democrats or a full committee decision to eliminate Trump. If it was a full committee decision to eliminate Trump, then I think they think that Trump wins this. If it was just one group against the other, that could have just been the actions that forced Biden to step down or change the lineup of who they're running. But they could still think that they could beat Trump in that scenario. So the assassination means different things based upon that question.
It does. What I would say, yeah. If you think of it this way, they have nothing but weak candidates.
Right.
From Biden to Harris to Newsom. Newsom is more hated than Harris is. You know, who are you going to...
Yeah, he's like Christian Bale. He's like American Psycho.
I know. It's like you got Gretchen Whitmer, whips and chains. You've got like all of these people. Like what are you going to do with these people, right? You have to run somebody equally odious against them. And that would be, of course, Nikki Haley, which is why Haley stayed in the race until Super Tuesday and tried to collect some delegates so she would have some gravitas. And then she would throw Trump under the bus at the RNC. It would be, the RNC would not be a celebration of anything. It would be a funeral march.
Right.
And then they would come out of and then the Democrats would run their ode to joy, and, you know, I think that was their plan. And I don't, you know, at a certain level, like the internal, and as far as I'm concerned, you know, the fuckers over in Europe who are orchestrating all this shit are like, we don't care who the fucking candidate is as long as it's not Trump.
Right.
Like, and then all the people on stateside are going, we can't be Trump because we're all going to go to jail because he's got us all dead to rights.
Right.
Because, you know, God knows what he actually was able to hold on to after the FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago and so,
right.
You know, and then if you go with my theory and you put that in and you say, and Wall Street knows where all the fucking bodies are buried.
Right.
And they're the ones, you know, basically effectively running interference for anybody around Trump. And then you can bring in the PayPal mafia, and you can bring in all, you know, Musk and Thiel and all these guys. Like all of a sudden you can see the organization of a countervailing, you know, force and in American politics. And so their only play, regardless of who the candidate is to leave Trump with a complete fucking mess that he can't get himself out of. And this was Obama's playbook during the 2016
primary.
What do you call it? The transition period. He did. Look at what Obama did during those 2.5 months. Like the amount of fuckery, to invoke my friend Jim Kunstler, like that these guys engaged in to leave Trump with a freaking mess was, you know, off the charts. So like there's so many incentives here. Like this is one of those things, like, how is Donald Trump still breathing? You know, and then again, I've said this before, I'm not a particularly religious man, but I look at the whole thing and I'm like, okay, all right, God, fine.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah,
Like,
it was too weird. Yeah, he was so I guess let's tie two things together with this. So like immediately after the assassination, Trump calls Kennedy on the phone. And Kennedy has his guy filming the conversation, and then he acts like it was wrong that he recorded it, but actually
Right.
it just the point was what you saw, right? The goal was what you saw, regardless of Kennedy's words about it afterwards. It was Kennedy wanted everyone to see that. And Trump is talking to Kennedy, and what Trump is telling Kennedy is that Joe Biden was actually very nice and called him up. And that Joe Biden asked him, how did you know to turn your head?
Right.
So and that's all right there in the public record. Like anyone can go on Rumble and find the clip, Trump phone call, Kennedy, it's all filmed. It's from Kennedy's perspective. That's Trump on the phone. Trump confirms he had the conversation. And Trump is saying Biden was really nice about it, called him up, see if he was okay, or to say, glad you're okay or whatever. And then asked him, how did you know to turn your head? So these things are so fucking weird, Tom. I just, it's like a movie, and then it's like, but then the actors can continue to look at the camera, and the fourth wall comes down all the time to let you know. Right. It's just so bizarre. And then this whole thing now that Kennedy, I didn't follow what happened to it yesterday, but there was like a rumor mill yesterday that Kennedy might endorse Trump.
Right. And I was, while you were speaking, I was listening to you, but while I was speaking, I was just checking to see if, Kennedy actually gave his press conference as to whether or not he was going to drop out of the race, and in anticipation of where we were going in this conversation. And so far, as of, it's just afternoon Eastern time, no, Kennedy hasn't said anything, but I don't know what time he was supposed to speak today. So, I think at a certain level, I find it, look, I've been under the assumption that Kennedy and Trump have been coordinating for a while now. Like Kennedy went to Mar-a-Lago a few months ago. Kennedy goes hard left. The leftist part of his agenda for the next couple of months. To make himself absolutely unacceptable to anybody kind of center right, or get the zero hedge set to go. Yeah, no, I can't vote for Kennedy. Meaning you're going to vote for Trump because it's the center of the electorate that will determine this election. We all know that, and it's always that way. So, and now, then it's gone back and forth a little bit. And
like basically the people that should probably have to pass a literacy test to vote and probably shouldn't be voting if they don't know by now. Apparently those are the people that all of our politics have to be geared towards, or the people who just can't fucking read. So,
don't hold back, Joaquin. Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah. No, it's like I made the analogy. I was like, if at this point in time, right, you're still asking for little pink spoon ice cream samples of Trump or Harris or Biden or whatever, I'm just going to go out and say ice cream is not your thing. Don't wait in line. Don't, don't go for ice cream. So don't vote. But yeah, the thing with Kennedy, yeah, right. Clearly it's not this. And I feel that. I wish I didn't have to care about politics. Unfortunately, I learned that if you don't care about politics, you're going to be ruled by people who do. Yes. And as much as I don't believe in politics, I must engage in it. You know what I mean?
I agree. I remember Lou Rockwell made that point. The great Lou Rockwell made that point like 20 years ago. He's like, "Oh God, I'm so post politics in every way, manner, shape, or form, but I'm also like a dog who can't go away from his own vomit because I kind of love it. I kind of love it. You know what I mean?" And I don't know if Lou used that exact metaphor, but it was basically that. And I was like, yeah, Lou, I know exactly. I feel you, dude. I really do. Yeah. Like I can't help myself. So this is why this is why he maintains the little portion of LouRockwell.com up in the upper right hand corner called the Political Theater. He can't help himself. He's constantly trolling constantly trolling the world and putting stuff out there because he can't help himself. I think you and I are the same way. Dexter White and I have this conversation all the time. We're like, God damn it, will you people just stop so we can go out and get real jobs? Like, what I mean? Like. But this is what we have. This is what you're paying us to do. It's almost kind of sad commentary on all of this, that this is what we have to do. And and as the immortal words of Frank Zappa, that politics is the entertainment arm of the military-industrial complex, and
That's right.
Which is a quote that's been going.
No, he's better than Yogi Berra with these. Yeah.
He was very good at. He was very good. Zappa was.
He was so on point with so much, almost everything for everything. Yeah, one of the things so in thinking about this Kennedy thing and thinking about this whole way that it's going forward is that he just 4 days ago got on the Arizona ballot, and Arizona is a swing state, and Trump needs Arizona, and so that what that means is that, like, even if they have succeeded enough to clean up the precinct process in Arizona. Everyone remember the Maricopa County catastrophe and all of that. Yeah. There are enough independent voters and voters that are kind of, for reasons of the lockdown and the COVID and stuff like that, we're considering Trump, and then Kennedy has a similar view, and Kennedy is palatable, and if you tell people at work that you like Kennedy, it's kind of like, oh, that's cool. I mean, Democrats say, oh, not the doctrinaire party hacks, but like a regular Democrat neighbor, and you want Kennedy, it's like, oh yeah, that's cool, and so basically, if you are up until, we'll see what happens, but right now, if you're going to vote for Kennedy, so like my cousin in Brooklyn, who some of you guys will see, you guys saw her a little bit on my Telegram channel from her little selfie video when we were all in New Mexico, Lauren, she's, for guys who follow my Telegram, she's the sister of my cousin Julia, who was trafficked to Dubai, and I had the sheik there help me find her, and we got her to a rehab in Hawaii, because obviously when they traffic the girls, they get them addicted to drugs to keep them in the loop and everything. So I want to thank you guys for helping me there. Lauren is her sister. Lauren was in the video. She says to me while there that she's voting for Kennedy, and I'm like, that's cool. I'm like, that's great. And my mom, who was planning to vote maybe for Biden, holding her nose, or not vote for Biden, but hating Trump, when she says I'm voting for Kennedy, she goes, oh, that's cool. So it was like Kennedy was this person that you could say that you're voting for, and unless you were like one of those Democrat police officers that's like, well, that's throwing away a vote for, that's just giving a vote, right? Unless you're one of those Democrat police officers, it was cool. And we talked to my cousin about the pandemic, about the lockdowns, about the horrible public health policy that we developed around that. She's spot on. She doesn't follow geopolitics. She doesn't even know about the war in Ukraine. I noticed throughout the country that there's no real evidence. People have no awareness. There's really nothing going on about the war in Ukraine in the U.S. It's not an issue.
Right.
And if you would think it would be, and I'm kind of curious if the Russians are afraid to make it an issue, and it seems that they're really muting things right now. They're proceeding. They're just not advertising it. If you check the temperature on Russian Telegram, they're making ongoing territorial victories, and they just captured the town of New York in Ukraine, but they're not. You're not seeing this level of bravado and advertising it. If anything, you have a focus on Kursk and their defensive stuff. And even though Kursk is a non-issue, Kursk is like a public relations maneuver. Kursk doesn't open up the opportunity for any development on that vector for Ukraine. It's just not strategically located in a place. They don't have the manpower, et cetera, et cetera. They're almost already vanquished there. So it's, but yet that is, if you were an American and you were going to find media about the war in Ukraine, all you're going to read about is victories in Kursk. Not that in the actual war that matters, like that Russia is actually moving the line closer to the Dnieper day by day. So now how the war in Ukraine will affect people's election, it's like if Russia is able to somehow either publicize, but then also, in fact, also amplify in terms of machines and people used their offensive in Ukraine, and if attention there gets drawn to it, I'm expecting Harris, by the way, to say something, if not anti-Zelensky, pro-ceasefire, that cuts against what Zelensky wants. And I'm expecting the Democrats to take more of Trump's platform, even on foreign policy, in words, if not in deeds. It could also be deeds as we get towards November. So there's so many things, right? So many ways it could go.
Yeah, one of the things that I've said from the beginning, and is that I said this a year ago. I said at some point Biden or the Democrats are going to go anti-war, because anti-war is invariably, if you want to swing voters in the middle in the United States, the anti-war vote is still a very powerful vote. So at some point they're going to become the pro-peace candidate, part of the pro-peace party. So I handicapped this a year ago. I said Trump is going to hang himself on Israel and Gaza, and the Democrats are going to move on the other side of that argument. They don't. Everybody said, "Well, no, they'll never do that because the Jewish lobby in the United States is too strong, and the donor class is too strong, and yada yada yada." I'm like, "Yeah, well, here we are." And then to your point, I'm glad you brought it up this way. I'm glad you did that without me prompting you for it, because I agree with you that at a certain level you're going to see a move by Harris to try and steal the anti-war vote away from Trump. We get into middle of September, late September. That's where we're going to go. Yeah. When they do the debates, it's going to be teed up for her to do this, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens on that front. And look, at the end of the day, fine if both of them have to grab that mantle, but there's no way in the world anybody will believe the Democrats on this point, because all Trump has to do is go, yeah, then why are our weapons inside Russia right now threatening a nuclear war? Are you going to get our weapons out of there? Are you going to stop this? What are you going to do about it? So Trump's people have to be right on point about this. And I was enheartened to see that, apparently that there was the rumor that Tulsi Gabbard was prepping Trump on foreign policy and all of this stuff. So, because that would be the point that I know she would make to him. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, if you had Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. on Team Trump, then it's like, that's just pretty much Trump landslide. In a lot of people's eyes, have it marked up that way.
It should be. And I know Gabbard is doing everything she can, almost to the point of it being a little much. I love Tulsi, but she's out there every day, like with another 7-minute video about how much she hates Kamala Harris, which was fine. I can almost not get enough of that. But at a certain point, I'm also like, just kind of like, as a producer, I'd be like, hey, kind of back off.
The story has to go somewhere.
Yeah, right. After a while, or people will just start tuning you out after a while. So use it judiciously. Use that point judiciously, and let us take care of the rest of it by resurrecting the 2020 primary debate, where she just like fucking crushed Kamala Harris out of the primary. So
yeah, it was nuts. It was weird how the Democrats made that selection. It was the way the Democrats did it. I mean, the Democrats' definition of a flex is imposing the most unpopular person on you and then having them win anyway. That's a flex. That's a power flex.
Absolutely,
it's sadistic. It's undemocratic.
Sadistic is a great word.
Yes, it's sadistic. It's a flex.
It is.
And I mean, for them, the definition of power, like philosophically, like when, for example, like my vision of power is like when I make agreements with people. You know what I mean? And like we're both on a journey and a mission together. Like that's powerful. You know what I mean? Through consent. That's called power together. You know what I mean? Joining forces, Democrats' idea of power is like, or these elites, not just Democrats, it's Republicans, neocons, it's just the sick. I don't want to partisanize this.
Yeah.
Around the world, there is a certain mentality of power. That power inherently is unpopular. They have a definition of leadership, which is going against your people.
Yes.
Going against your base is called leadership somehow in this sadistic view, and they also they gauge how much power they have by the level of unpopularity of their agenda.
Yes.
You know, and it's like,
Yes.
yeah, we still got it in there, baby. So what the fuck can you say? You know,
They literally are rubbing our noses in it and daring us at this point to do something about it, because as you said, as you brought up earlier, that the whole point of this is the reaction,
yeah,
or the
demoralization,
action reaction,
radicalization.
right, and to get to
Right.
radicalization. I think that's a good place to leave this, actually,
Yeah.
as a perfect coda on this whole podcast. Joaquin, I want to really thank you for, you know, bearing with me and my and my Slack and everything else, and finally getting a chance to sit down and chat. Let everybody know where they can find you, because I know it's hard. Because unlike many of us, Joaquin's been mostly canceled. So
Yeah,
but
I'm mostly
he still
canceled.
rocks.
And yeah, the FBI tried to cancel me physically a month and a half ago. I have avoided that, thank God, but I'm still here. And yeah, so I'm on Telegram at New Resistance. That's it. At, you know, the little at sign everyone knows, like your old emails and stuff, at New Resistance. If you just go on the Telegram app and you search for at New Resistance, it's going to be a gray star. That's how you know I have the right one. And that's it. That's me. And that's
And
where
it's
I
a great
mostly,
challenge.
that's where I do it all. Thank you so much for having me on, Tom. I'm also on Patreon, and for like $5 and $10 a month, you get different packages of recording all my live streams for you at your disposal. And I do the live stream. I do several different live streams, and sometimes as many as 5 in a week, but always 3 or 4. And yeah, that's what I'm doing with this. I want to thank you again, Tom.
No problem, man. I really enjoyed the talk, as always, and you know, and I don't use Telegram a lot. Pretty much the only reason I still have it installed is that every once in a while I check in on New Resistance, to be honest with you. My
Appreciate
people
it.
check everything else, and they throw everything at me on our private server. But the only one that I actually seek out on a regular basis is Joaquin. It's that good. All right, man. You take care, and then we'll talk again real soon now.
Yeah,
Hopefully we'll do this again in a couple of months.
you got it. That's an agreement. Cheers.
All right. Cheers.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that'll about wrap it up for episode 188 of the Gold, Ghosts, and Guns podcast. I want to really thank Joaquin Flores for coming in and being him. I really enjoy chatting with Joaquin. It's always enlightening. There's always an angle on things that I think I see, and then sometimes it's nice to get corroboration from other people who are I don't interact with on a daily basis and see similar things. It's both kind of edifying and almost a little horrifying all at the same time. So, as always, you can follow my work over at my blog at tomluongo.me or goldgoatsandguns.com. You can follow me on Twitter at TFL1728. You can follow my partner Dexter White at Dexter K. White. As well, you can sign up for Patreon at patreon.com/goldgoatsandguns, where we do twice weekly market reports and private blogs and private podcasts, as well as the monthly newsletter, where we really try and tie everything up and look ahead, as well as provide you a model portfolio with which to try and thrive in this truly insane freaking world that they've crafted for us. All right, with that said, I'm out. You guys be well. You take care. We'll talk soon. Keep your stick on the ice.